Welcome in the 24th episode. Today we will implement the settings screen and also upgrade our project to the latest Unity version. If you want to help support this channel, hit the subscribe button below this video, turn on notifications so you will not miss any future episode I release. Also, if you want to purchase the completed game project, you can go to my website CodePlanStudio.com and hit this Buy Unity project, where you can find all of the ready projects for you to download and release. Keep an eye on this page as I will add some more projects. Some of them will not be available through the YouTube, so there's gonna be some unique projects which you can only get from this website. Okay, so let's get started. So first of all, let's open the Unity Hub, and as you see, our block adventure tutorial is currently targeting 2019 Unity. So let's hit this box on the side and let's choose the version you want to use. So I'm gonna use the latest one which I have installed, which is gonna be 2023. I'm gonna select that and hit open with that version, and then hit the change version. And now you will see the pop-up warning you that you're gonna lose some, you might have some problems. So I'm gonna hit continue. Okay, seems like there is some errors, so you can enter the safe mode, which is a recommended way to do it. I tend to ignore all of the errors and then solve it within the Unity itself, so I'm gonna do that. Now I'm gonna hit ignore button, which is gonna force the project to be opened with all of the errors. So as you see, I have some packages, so I'm gonna dismiss it. And now if you switch to the console, you will see some errors, which seems like there is some problems with the grid script. So I'm gonna hit this error and then double click on it. And yes, we have some issues. So first of all, for some reason I was included the using boolang. I'm gonna delete that. And also seems like now the list is not recognized. And this is because the list is inside the system collection generic, where I have included the system collection. So let's modify that and put generic. And this will solve the problem with the list. So make sure you add this using statement at the top. Now we can save. We can go back to Unity. So now you will see that there is no more problems and the games should run without any issue. So we can hit play, test it, and everything is working fine. Okay, so now let's focus on our settings menu. So make sure you are on the main menu scene, and currently we have this settings button, but this button does not do anything when you click on it. When we click this button, we want to have the settings screen, screen settings UI to be animated in and out. So we're going to add that today. So in our main menu scene, let's go to the canvas and then settings. And first of all, let's add a new object. So right click on the settings, UI image. Let's call this image settings screen. And now let's go to our graphics and you will find this score box. So I just grab and drop it in the source image, hit the set native size and move it somewhere in the middle of the screen. I will modify just the X position, maybe here. Okay, let's change the height to be 200 and actually final width will be 700. So let's position this accordingly, maybe over here will be fine. Okay, so let's now set the width to be 0. So you should see this object disappeared because we're gonna animate this object in. So when we actually start the game, the settings is not visible. So now let's add actually one script. So let's go to the scripts. And now we want to actually do some animation for our settings button as well. So let's actually right click, create C# script, and let's call it setting button. Just open that setting button. Let's remove all of these functions, and then let's call public button, and then open settings button, and then we want to have this close settings button, and then public void settings opened. I will explain all of this function in the minute. And then setting closed. Okay, so we need those two functions. Essentially, we're going to have two buttons, one for the open settings and one for the close settings. They're going to look the same, they're going to be overlapping each other, but in regard to the setting state, always one of the buttons will be inactive, so will not be visible. So we want to control the visibility of those buttons within these functions. So when we open settings, we want to have this open setting button dot game object dot set active to be false. So when the settings is already open, we want to hide the open setting button, and for some reason the game object is not recognized, and I think this is because Rider by default added me this using statement UI elements. So let's remove that, and we want to get the button from the UI, not from the UI elements. Okay, so make sure you have the unity.ui, and now we have the game object. So open settings should be deactivated, and then close settings should be active. So close settings dot game object, and then set active to true. So we're going to activate that button, and also we want to make sure our button close settings button is interactable, so we can actually click on it. And we want to do the same for the close settings. For the close settings, we want to have this open settings button dot set active to be true, and then we want to hide this close settings button, so false. And also we want to make open settings button interactable. Okay, I will actually move this line above so they are together. Okay, so we have those two functions which we're gonna call. I will remove that unneeded using statement. Let's save it, and now we can go back to Unity. And as I mentioned, we already have one button which we actually calling the show. So now let's actually add another button. So right click on this button and then duplicate, and then settings button hide. I'm gonna rename it. Okay, so they are two the same buttons which they cover each other. They are the same position and looks exactly the same. We want to deactivate the hide button at the beginning, and let's actually add our script to both of them. So select the show button and then many buttons, drag and drop to that object, make sure it's added, and then settings button hide, many buttons, and then drag and drop. And actually this many buttons we need to go back to that script again, because we have actually added wrong script. It's not the many buttons, we want to add the setting button. So again, hit this show button, let's remove the menu buttons and add our setting button. Okay, and now we want to initialize those two buttons. So open settings button is going to be the show button, and then close settings button is going to be that hide button. So drag and drop those two buttons and do the same for the hide button. So go to the hide button. Let's remove that menu button from here. Grab our setting buttons to this object and then initialize the same variables. So open settings button will be our show button, and then the close settings button will be our hide button. Okay, so we have those two already. So now let's actually do some animation. So first of all, let's animate our middle panel. So select our setting screen, and now let's go to the window, animation, and then animation. Let's dock this animation window somewhere here. Okay, so make sure our settings screen object is selected, and now go to the animation window and hit this create button. So now Unity asks us where we want to save this animation. So I'm gonna go to the asset animations and I'm gonna create new folder, and then that's gonna be the settings animation. Okay, create that folder, select that folder, and now we want to name our animation to open settings. Open settings, hit save, and as you see, Unity already added this animation. And also, if you're gonna go to that folder, animation, settings animation, you will see that Unity has created the animator as well, the settings screen animator, which is handy, and we're gonna use it in a minute. So let's first of all animate in our panel. So make sure our settings screen is selected, and then in the animation, I have open setting animation selected here. From this drop down, we can hit add property. Now let's go to the rect transform, and then size delta. Hit the small plus next to it, and let's open all of these variables. So at the first frame, if you select the first frame, we want our x value to be 0, and on the last frame, when I select it, I want to have this x value to be 700, because that's going to be our target width. And now if you hit play, is actually, I think this is actually wrong way around. So 700 to 0, we want to have 0 to 700. So select this first frame again, just put 0 in, and select this last frames and make sure put 700. Okay, play that again. That's correct. So this is how we're gonna open our settings. So now let's actually add one more animation, the close animation. Just go to this drop down and select create new clip, and I'm gonna call it close animation. Close animation, and I want to save it in the same location. So setting animation, save. And for the close animation, we're gonna make sure that setting screen is selected. We're gonna add property, red transform, size delta, and then for the first frame, we wanna the settings is already open. So this x is 700. It's exactly the same value as we finished the previous animation, and then last frame is gonna be 0. So 700 to 0. That's fine. Let's play and see how this looks. That's correct. Okay, so we have those two animations now. Now let's go to our animation, setting animation, and let's open our setting animation animator. So if you double click on this, you will see the animator window. We can close our animation window for now. And inside our animator, we have the animation states. So as you see, we already have the close animation and open animation. These states are added because we have created those animations, so they name automatically the same as our animation. So first of all, let's add the idle state. So right click in the empty space, create state empty. I'm gonna select that new state and I'm gonna call it idle. We want to make sure from the entry state we're gonna go to the idle. So I will just right click on the entry, make transition, and then click on the idle. And now let's right click on the idle and then set as layer default state. So the idle should turn orange and you should see exactly the same results as me. Now let's move this open state a bit up. And now we want to create transition from any state to open and to close animation. So right click on the end state, make transition, connect with open state, and the same with the close animation. And now we want to basically set condition where each of the animation will be triggered and will be played. So to do that, we will need some parameters. So go to the right hand side and select the parameters and then add this small plus and then select trigger, and I'm gonna call it open settings, and we want to do the same small plus trigger close settings. So the trigger is basically have two values, true and false, the same as the boolean variable. If the open settings trigger is set, we want to basically play the open setting animation. If the close settings is set, we want to play the close setting animation. So make sure they are unchecked at the beginning. And now let's hit the transition arrow for the open settings. From the condition, let's hit the small plus. From the drop down, let's select the open settings and do the same for the close animation. So hit this arrow, small plus for the condition, and then select the close settings. And that's pretty much it for what we have to do. We can save now, and we can actually close this animator window. And now select our settings screen. And as you see, our settings screen has now the animator component, which is added by default, because at the time when we was creating the animation, the first animation, we have this object selected. But for some reason, if you don't and you can't see the animator, you can go to the right at the bottom, add component, animator, and then drag and drop our settings screen into the controller. Okay, so we have this now, and now we need to actually have one more script. We're gonna set our triggers for the animation. So let's go to the scripts. I will just right click, create C# script, and I will just name it menu animation controller. Okay, and then let's open that script. Let's remove the start and then update method, and then basically we want to accept the animator, so public animator, and then we want to have the public function void play animation, and we want to call the string trigger name, and this is exactly what we want to do. So this is the Copilot which give me this suggestion. So we want to call animator, set trigger, and then trigger name. So this is the name for the trigger which we set in our animator window. So let's save everything now. Let's go back to Unity. And now what we want to do is basically go to the settings screen object and add our menu animation controller and drop it right at the bottom. And now animator, we need to initialize with our animator. So I will just grab this animator component and drop it into the animator field. So make sure it's initialized. And now we need to trigger this animation from the button press. So let's go to the setting button show and go down to the onClick event. And in the onClick event, we want to add two functions. First function will be basically the showing the setting screen. So I will just drag the setting screen and drop it into the runtime object. And from the function, I will select the menu animator controller and then play animation. And now we need to we need to put the name of the trigger we want to play. So if you go back to our setting screen animator, when we're showing the menu, we want to set this open setting trigger to true. So I just gonna copy the name, and then let's go back to the onClick event for the setting button show, and let's paste that name in. And then let's do the same for the setting button hide. Select that button, go to the onClick event, hit the small plus, drag and drop our setting screen, and then menu animation controller, and then let's select the play animation. And this time we want to set our close settings. So I'm just going to copy to not make any spelling mistake. Close setting trigger. Okay, so we're just setting basically the triggers. Okay, so let's go back to our game screen and let's hit play. Hit on the setting button and you should see that animation, but for some reason the animation is keep looping. So let's stop it. Go to our setting animation. Let's select that open animation. And inside the inspector, you will see the loop time. So uncheck that, so the animation will not loop. And do the same for the close animation. And now when you hit play, you will see that the settings is open and is actually keep opening because we haven't deactivated our setting button. We're going to do that now. We need to animate this setting button as well. So let's do that. So we need to create more animations. So let's select our setting button show. Let's go to again to the window animation and animator animation. I need to dock it again. And now let's create new animation. So create. And then I'm gonna store it in the same folder. So setting animation, and then let's call it open settings button. So this is animation for the button. And now the open setting buttons is selected. Let's add the property. So what we want to do, we want to actually rotate this button. So let's hit this add property. And then rect transform rotation. So let's hit plus. And for the start, we want to have the rotation, and we want to change the Z value to 360. Actually, the Z value on the start will be 0. So that's my mistake. So right at the beginning should be 0, and then right at the end, when you select the last frame, set the Z value to 360. Okay, so now when we play, you will see the button is moving. There is one more thing we need to do. When the animation is finished, we want to call our function from our setting button script. So let's move this cursor right at the end. And then let's hit this small add event button. So the event will be added at the last frame. And now we can actually, inside the inspector, we can select the function which we want to call from that event. So all of the functions available here will be available from our object itself. So we see I can select the function, then setting button, and then method, and I have the setting opened and then setting closed method. So I will just select the setting opened because we hid it and we opened the settings, so that's function we're gonna call. And now our animation is ready. So when I hit the play now, our button should be deactivated. This is what's happened, and we have the hide button animation. Okay, so now we can hit this again. Okay, so now let's add another animation. Let's select the setting hide button and then hit create. And now let's call this animation close setting buttons, and then add property rect transform rotation, and then rotation right at the beginning will be the rotation we had at the end of the open, so that's going to be 360. So that's going to be for the first frame, and for the last frame it's going to be 0. Okay, so we're going to go from 360 to 0. If you hit play, actually not display, if you hit play in the animator window, and then we cannot see it because the button is inactive. But there is one more thing we need to do. We need to, right at the end on the last frame, we need to add that event, and now we want to call function from the setting button method setting closed. Okay, so we want to deactivate the setting hide button and then show the settings show button. Okay, I think we are ready now. Actually, there is one more thing which we wanna change, and because we have added the animation for two different objects, we have two different animation controller. So if you select the setting button show, you will see you have the setting button show controller, and then if you select the setting button hide, you have the setting button hide controller, which is not correct. We want to have just one controller, so I will just remove the setting button hide controller, delete, and then I want to keep the setting button show, and I just rename it to setting button. And then let's select the setting button show object, drag the setting button and drop it inside the animator controller. And the same for the setting button hide, just grab setting button and drop it into the controller. Okay, and then let's edit that setting button controller, and we need to do exactly the same what we did for the previous one. So right click, create empty state, select that state, call it idle. Let's make transition to that state, right click on the idle state and then set as layered default state. And now we have the open setting button, which is the open settings animation. We need to add another state, so right click, create empty, and that's gonna be our close settings button. And then we want to call the animation the close settings button animation. So drag that animation and put it into the motion. Okay, and now we want to make transition from any state, so right click on any statement, make transition, connect our open settings, and then do the same for the close settings. And now we need to add the parameters, so let's add the triggers. So trigger, open settings, and then trigger close settings. Okay, and now let's select the transition for the open settings. From the condition, add the open settings, and transition for the close settings, add the condition, and then close settings. So we did exactly the same as we did for the previous animation controller. You could theoretically put everything in the same animation controller, but I will just keep it separately. So I think we are ready now to test. So there is one more thing we need to do. We need to actually add the script, the menu animation controller, to our setting button show. So the setting button, so let's select the setting button show and then drag our menu animation controller and drop it into that object. And then for the animator, we need to grab our, actually let's move this script down. For the animator, we want to grab our animator and drop it into the animator window, so make sure it's initialized, and do the same for the hide button, menu animation controller, and then drop the animator to the animator window. Okay, and now let's select the show button once again, and then we want to add a few more on-click events. So let's hit the small plus, and then when we click on the button, first thing we want to do, we want to set the button to be not interactable, so we cannot press multiple times on it. So I just gonna grab the settings show button, drop it here, from the functions select button, and this select interactable, and make sure this tick is unchecked. And then we also want to play the animation, so hit the plus, so just drag and drop settings show button, from the functions select the menu animation controller, play animation, and then we want to call this trigger, so open settings. So make sure you put that open settings name inside it. Okay, and then do the same for the setting hide button. So go there, hit the small plus, drag and drop this object, from the function select the button, interactable, make sure it's unchecked, and then again hide button, and then from the menu animation controller, let's select the play animation, and then we want to call the close settings. I'm gonna copy it just to not make any spelling mistakes, and then put it inside this parameter. So I think we are ready now, and I think everything should work. So let's actually test. Let's hit play. I will close this animation window because we don't need it. Make this a bit bigger. So when you hit this settings button now, nothing happened. Oh, there is. Okay, so we have that. You see, we have opened the settings, we deactivated the show button, and we activated the hide button. And now when we click on this button again, we close the settings, we deactivated the hide button, and then activated the show button. So everything should work fine. And as you see, you cannot multiple times, you cannot click on the button more than once, because the button is going inactive right away. So everything should work, and this is the settings. So I think that's it for today. In the next episode, we will add the sound buttons to the settings, and also the privacy policy button, which we can use to call your privacy policy inside the game. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next episode.